Good evening, and you're very welcome to another episode of the Women's National League. Well, the Women's Premier Division, I think, is the official title of the League of Ireland podcast here on FinalWhistle.ie. I'm Breifne Earley, and of course, with me, as always, Aaron Clarke of the WNL Show. Aaron, you're welcome back. Another week over, another round of games, plenty to talk about.
Fresh haircut, nice and fresh, ready to go for another week. Listen, all exciting. I give over the beard was looking nearly a bit homeless last week. I had to get rid of it. Had to sort of freshen up a little bit ahead of this week's appearance. But no, listen, all good. It's been an interesting week, good weekend. Nice to get a bit of sunshine. I think that puts everybody in a bit of good form as well. A bit of sunshine out watching some games of football. Can't complain.
Yeah. Phenomenal games over the weekend. Of course, we'll be talking about a couple of clubs paying the penalty, maybe not for practicing penalties during the week. 4 missed penalties across the 6 games, 2 of them from the one player, but we won't talk about that to save Noelle Murray's graces, or Nicole Murray, as she's been christened by the Waterford commentators over the weekend. We're going to be talking about all of the action from last week. We're going to be previewing the games that are coming this Saturday, but all in all, a pretty exciting weekend for the sports. A bit distracted this week, obviously from Leitrim, myself, as you'd be well aware, and we've been taking over the GAA airwaves this week with our decision to concede a game. I absolutely hate that decision. Don't care what you have to do, but you never concede the games. And of course, then from a personal point of view, was at the rugby on Sunday. My nephew captained Sligo to their second consecutive Connacht Senior Cup title. So it's been a busy week for me off the pitch. But of course, Saturday was spent watching women's games and so much action. We might start. We've no guest this week because we've had a guest the last couple of weeks, and to be honest, we don't get to talk enough about the football. So we've decided maybe this week we're going to talk a bit about football. We've guests lined up for next week as well. We'll tell you more.
Can we have a little bit of a bet?
Okay.
Yeah. Are you taking the overs or under?
I'm going for the under the hour if that's what you're for. Because if I have to press the end screen button at 59:59, that's what's happening, Aaron. I hate to break
you've said that nearly every week.
I know. But we have to be mindful of people's ability to listen to us talk rubbish about the women's league for the next hour or so. Plenty of games, of course, over the weekend. Though 2 penalties missed in Waterford. Maeve Williams pulled off 2 saves. I'm gonna give the Cork keeper the credit for the save down there as well, because I think she got her fingertips to push that onto the post in injury time. But the excitement that Cork had saving a penalty in injury time when they're 4-0 up shows how important, I suppose, every moment is for these Cork girls. They were enjoying themselves on Saturday afternoon.
Do you know what? I'm going to correct you slightly before I even mention Cork City, right? And this is a pet peeve of mine. I know she's classed as one of the top players in the league in terms of, so everybody expects Noelle Murray to score. But I don't think Maeve Williams has got the credit that Maeve Williams deserves for saving 2 penalties on Saturday. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But from Cork City, it's just like that Frank Kelleher effect to me. And it's everything about the sort of performance rings Frank Kelleher, the way he used to have the galvanisation previously. Like, you have to remember, he was the manager when they won the FAI Cup, when they beat UCD Waves in the Aviva. Like, a lot of people sort of left that Peamount game the week before thinking there was some positives from it. And we were sort of even saying to ourselves last week, if Sligo can go and get a result, we'll know it's Sligo from last year. But I think from a Cork viewpoint, they were just in themselves. They were like, we need to get the result. We need to win. We need to start our season. I think if you'd asked any of us, or asked anybody to sort of put a prediction of how this game was going to go, I'd say you'd be lucky if you got 1 in 100 said 4-0 Cork. I don't think anybody would have said that sort of result.
I don't even think you'd have got 1 in 1,000 to say 4-0 to Cork. But a fantastic result for them, and a really good pick-me-up for them. Where to from Sligo? Let's get stuck into some of the games. We have kind of agreed what order we're going to go through them in. So we're going to start, we're going to look at the penalties first. So we've gone with Shamrock Rovers and Athlone Town. This game ended level. Neither side would be really happy with it, although I suppose both still unbeaten, which is a positive for both. But some really exciting moments in this. Roisha Littlejohn, of course, was the big arrival. She signed during the week. She made her debut, and boy, did she really make that debut. Some impression with that free kick. Maybe a little bit of a help off the goalkeeper's back as it went through, but phenomenal effort from her.
I've watched that so many times. I don't think he went off the keeper. I think the keeper missed it. And I'd be the first to turn around and say, yeah, it's an own goal. And I've watched it so many times. It's a superb free kick. like for Rusha to come in and do that, it's no real surprise. Yes, when she scored that goal for Ireland from distance last year, it was 100% an own goal, but it was a lovely free kick. You could even see what that sort of buzz even gave the Shamrock Rovers. I know you say both teams maybe won't be too pleased with it, but I think if you offer Collie O'Neill 4 points before he'd have played either of these two games, he'd probably would have said, yeah, I'll take that, no problem. What a great start. But for me, Rovers, obviously, when they go up, or when they go 1-0 up, you're then thinking, can they push on a little bit? I think Anya Gorman has to score when she's that chance, when she's through on goal.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment, because just in case people haven't seen the highlights or didn't watch the game, even though there was a decent crowd, I believe, in Tala, but so basically what happened was Anya dispossesses a defender middle of the half, of the attacking half, and Anya of old would have just gone headline straight for goal and had maybe a 2-on-1 situation develop there. But she kind of dilly-dallied a little bit, kind of jinked one way, jinked back, and then had an effort from the edge of the box that kind of just drifted wide. And it's a very different Anya O'Gorman we're seeing this season than maybe we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years in the league.
Oh, 100%. But for me, I don't mind the first jink, because the first jink actually throws the Athlone player and gives her that extra yard of space, because the Athlone player sort of, I think it might have been Kaylee Shine, went to her right, and that sort of opens that hole. And Anya of old would have just been like, I'm going straight through that hole, I'm going straight towards goal. But it was nearly as if it was like, oh, what am I going to do here? I'm not 100% sure here. And she probably had too much time for her own liking, and that would have, and when you see from that, you're sort of thinking, oh, Anya, you hit the target there, you go 2-0 up there, you're in cruise control early on in the game. And it's interesting when I look at Rovers, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about them, but like when I look at Joy Ralph and Emily Corbett, like I'm going to skip forward further into the game, and I'm not going to talk about the penalty incident, but I'm just going to talk about in the build up to it, or even in the second half. There was times where Anya was through the middle, even for the penalty. Anya's through the middle. She lays the ball gets laid off to Joy, who's making a sprint and run from deep on the left hand side, and then when the camera picks up, when you look at the top corner, Emily Corbett is coming from deep as well. And I know Colley's trying to sort of maybe implement a bit of a rotation with that front three, but I don't know how much it's going to work in terms of chopping and changing. Like, because realistically, you want Joy through the middle to score goals. You want Emily's best position is through the middle. And Anya seems to have a lot of her success when she's out wide, sort of coming in. So it's one of them that I think, from Robert's viewpoint, that the front three, while they've great firepower, could be a bit of a hindrance at the minute, that they just need to figure that little dynamic out, how they're going to work together to sort of get that balance and strike that iron. But there's no doubt bringing someone like Rusha in, allowing other players then to sort of have a little bit more freedom, a little bit more experience there, is going to give opportunities, because we've seen again in the build-up, Fiona Owens playing a long ball forward. Fiona Owens was instrumental in the goal the week before. So they've got players that can play football from all over the pitch. It's just about, like, with it being a newer group, like even their 17s players started to come back into the squad this week, who missed last week, like Anna Butler, Ella Kelly, they were all available this week. And I think from a Robert's viewpoint, it's still a lot of finding feet and finding what way they want to play and what way they want to have that proper identity with the squad that they have this year. But there's no doubt that it's been a promising start, and I just think they will learn from a lot from these games.
I'm going to read out a couple of names on the Shamrock Rovers bench, and I want you to kind of give your thoughts on the dynamic that it created the weekend. You probably know who I'm going to say already. There's 5 of them as far as I can make out. Katie Keane, Fiona Owens, Scarlett Heron, Emily Corbett, and on the bench, Melissa O'Kane. They're all ex-Athlone players. They're all Tommy Hewitt players, I suppose, really, in some respects. And they've come into that Shamrock Rovers team, and they've really pushed on in terms of their own ability to kind of get involved in the game and really make an impact.
Yeah, but then you look at some of them players in that sort of instance, and you're sort of thinking, like, for me, the one who probably has the most pressure is Emily. Wexford didn't work. Shamrock Rovers second half of last season got going a little bit. Probably didn't have what she wanted. Fiona Owens missed quite a bit of last year, and she's been very good for them. Scarlett Heron, yeah, great. The biggest thing about these players is like, yes, when they left Athlone, they had that good year. Some of them won the cup, some of them had gone just before that. But you can definitely see a lot of work that some of them have done with the coaching staff at Shamrock Rovers, because there's no doubt some of them players, I'm not going to include Katie because Katie's only moved now, but the likes of your Scarlett Herons has taken a massive step on at Shamrock Rovers, and a lot of these players are getting good embeddings and getting better. Like it's the same when you look at, say, Shelbourne. A lot of their previous players who were playing with Shelbourne are playing with both. Like you look at I think last week I think I counted nine former Shelbourne players in the Bows squad. And I think the biggest thing in terms of the league and the great thing now is what we're starting to see is players necessarily aren't happy playing bits of pieces here. They want to be playing, and players are going to go and prioritise themselves. And there's no doubt Shamrock Rovers have definitely benefited from the success of Athlone over the last couple of years. And Athlone had to really go again, really rebuild. And like Kelly Brady again on the score sheet from again, superb. They got the players back with the visa issues from the week before, and like
let's talk about Maddie Gibson in particular about that visa issue when you bring it up, because she was central to nearly everything that Athlone did at the weekend. She had that great break down the left across for Brady's equaliser just before halftime, but she just couldn't capitalize. Katie Keane came and flapped it got a half a punch on a cross that came in and fell to Gibson. She just couldn't get it on target, but Gibson seemed to be the main focus of that attack. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yes, she's a huge talent, but does it mean that the players that we watched the week before kind of mix and match and get involved? Now everything seems to be going through Gibson again. Is that a chance that it's easily cut outable?
Everything is going to go through Gibson. All season, everything is going to go through Gibson. And that's the thing when it comes to Athlone, is everything will go through Gibson. Gibson's going to be centre shoot him. And like, even when we look at last year, you know, she got a lot of praise, but your concern is from a Athlone viewpoint, and if you're an Athlone fan, is yes, Gibson is going to be key to a lot of what you do, but there is other cogs maybe that at times they were over-reliant on Gibson last year, where maybe they don't have to be now. They have somebody who we cried out for in terms of an out-and-out striker in Kelly Brady, who can at this level can score a handful of goals. So it's all from an Athlone viewpoint. It's all going to be a case of how do they strike that balance? Because is it a case that with the amount of changes that they have, they're going a bit too tight because the players they know at this stage? Potentially. But is it going to work all season? That's the interesting question. And you don't want to be too reliant on one player, because then teams will just put an extra player there, and then they'll just man mark Maddie Gibson, and then it becomes a lot more difficult for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Second half kind of petered out a bit. It was great end-to-end stuff, but very short in terms of actual chances. Maybe Maddie Gibson had a chance where she should have done better later on in the game. At the chance to seal it in the last 10 minutes, though, probably came from that controversial moment you spoke about. We've looked into the red card for Brennan, and my initial reading of it was 50-50. Both players pulling out of each other. Joy Ralph goes down. It's a red card. It's a penalty. We've checked the legality of that, and you can maybe fill in a bit of the blanks on whether we weren't sure whether it should have been a red card or a yellow card, depending on being inside or outside the box. But you looked into it. You spoke to a referee about it.
Yeah, I asked the referee who I'm good friends with, and what he sort of said to me is, if she makes no attempt to win the ball and she fouls her, like there's no doubt she fouls her, but it's a bit of 50-50. If he gives that foul, because she's not actually made a genuine attempt to play the ball, she's played at the player, it is a red card. Whereas if she had played at the ball and mistimed the challenge at the ball, then it's a slightly different scenario. It's one of them that we looked at it several times together. We started talking about it. It's one of them that's, you see them giving, you see them not giving, you see free outs being given. Is it soft? Probably. Is it one of them that you're going to say it's a foregone conclusion that it's a penalty? Probably not, but it's one of them that once he gives that decision, he probably looking at it and from the opinion I've been getting there, he probably has no choice but to give the red card, because he's deemed that she hasn't made an attempt to play the ball. When you look at the replay, it's the two of them are sort of jersey on jersey. She never goes with her foot to actually play at the ball. And to me, it's when you, by the letter of the law, it is a red card. It's a harsh red card because of the scenario, but like it's probably 50-50. It's a free out the other way on another day. I would have concerns about the entire build up to the penalty from a Athlone viewpoint. Like when you look at it, the ball's given away in midfield, just inside the Shamrock Rovers half. Fiona Owens plays a ball forward. There's 3-4 players around Anya O'Gorman's able to just chip it over the top. But Kelly Brennan should not be getting caught. She initially has a yard on Joy Ralph, and then Joy Ralph gets in goal side of her. And Kelly sort of caught 6s and 7s and that.
Yeah, it's only going one way once Ralph gets goal side of her, let's be honest. A few funny things around that particular period of the game, though, that you've highlighted to me. One was I found hilarious, and I didn't notice the one you pulled out of the bag a few minutes ago, but it took the referee forever to get that out of his pocket. I don't know whether his pocket had a button on it or whatever it might have been, but it took him maybe a good 15, 20, 25 seconds to get that actually physically out of his pocket to show the red card. Everyone in the ground knew it was coming at that stage, but I thought that was funny. You found one that was even funnier, though.
Yeah, so yeah, when the goal goes in,
no, when the penalty is taken,
when the penalty is saved, the person on the LED boards thinks it's a goal, pops up the goal flash, and when you're looking at it, you're sort of thinking, "Oh no, it's one of them that it's something that you think you don't expect." And I was speaking to the commentator from the game, and he was saying that the person didn't have a good view of the thing, just heard the crowd roar, thinking it was a goal, because obviously Athlone tend to travel with quite a few fans. But to her credit, give the keeper a lot of credit. It's a nice penalty save. It's low in the corner. She has to really stretch for it, and it's a really good penalty, really good penalty save.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We move on from Athlone. We look maybe at one of the other games.
Just before we do, you've talked about Gibson, about the chance from when Katie Keane started with the punch. For me, I think Gibson has to do better with the chance when she gets the long ball across late in the second half. I think she has to find the target there. And if you're looking at it, do you say 2 points drop for Athlone or 2 points drop for Shamrock? Which I think in the end, considering early on the season, that's probably not the worst result for both teams.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Also, we will talk about the team of the week later. Plesko in goal for Athlone really put her hand up with that penalty save, but a couple of other moments during the game where you could argue she really shone all game. You know, probably should have been in that conversation, maybe was in that conversation for the team of the week. A couple of others as well stuck their head up for inclusion. Let's move to Waterford. The new girls hosting the defending FAI and President's Cup champions, Shells. Shells missed 2 penalties, as you mentioned. Noelle Murray, 2 of 3, of course. Very strange. Noelle took the first one, missed it, gave the duties to Roman McLaughlin for her penalty, and she slotted it away. Maeve Williams went the same side as she had for the first one. And then the third penalty, literally 2 minutes after the second, Noelle Murray's back on penalty duties. Like, I don't understand that, is the first thing. But then for Noelle to miss going the same side again as she went in the first half, phenomenal saves from Maeve Williams, who really, I thought, 99% of the time at the weekend was class. 1 or 2, maybe you'd kind of say she should have done better with, maybe 1 or 2 of the headers. And the corner over your head is always a bit of a dodgy one as a keeper. But I thought she was decent. I thought she had a really good. She was Waterford's best player, I'd argue.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Any for Roman McLaughlin's thoughts on Saturday?
On the third penalty is awarded.
No, not even that. Not even that. I'll go one better. So in the 20th minute, Roman McLaughlin is booked for diving, where it could have potentially been a penalty.
Should have been a penalty, I would argue, but that's a different story.
Roman McLaughlin goes down again for the initial penalty.
Okay.
I can imagine she probably had a little bit of a panic if he thinks I've gone down here lightly. Is he going to give me a second yellow card after 25 minutes? Because I think the first one probably should have been a penalty. But then after that, obviously, he's given Shelburne 3 penalties. Yeah, I think the first penalty for me, it's at a decent enough height for Maeve Williams. She gets the arm across and sort of actually probably looking at it again. It's probably a poor penalty from Noelle. If I'm being honest, it probably is a poor penalty. And Williams
went the right way, which is 90% of it. Do you know what I mean? Once she goes the right way, if you can get a strong hand to it and keep it out, the guess in the right direction is the right way. And yeah, I think you could see from Noelle's reaction to both penalty misses that she was, and you mentioned she was been fairly flagellatory. That's not even a word.
Self-critical of herself.
Yeah, well, not critical as such, but kind of just self-defacing. Kind of just having poking a bit of fun at herself on social media after the game. But
I like that. I like that. But the thing for me is, and everybody's going to look at the result and say Shells missed 2 penalties, Waterford won, Waterford lost 4-0. I'm actually thought for periods of this game, Waterford defended okay.
There were a few moments. You talked about Gibson having to do better with the fluffed punch from Keane in the first game. I think there was a very early on, a corner came in. Williams went up, got a hand on it, but it fell to Murray, who just couldn't keep it down. I think she has to do better in that situation as well. But this game could easily have been 10-0. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
And I think
even when you look at the chance of Pearl Slattery with the volley at the back post from, I think that was the corner where Maeve, Pearl volley's over. Yeah, but it could have easily been 10-0, and that's the thing about it. But that's the difference between a clinical team or a team with a lot of X factor versus a new team coming into the league. And I don't want to sound discouraging for Waterford fans and when I say this, but this could happen quite a few times when they play the likes of if Shamrock Rovers click, if Wexford really click, if Peamount click, Athlone click. This could happen quite a few times. You'd hope it doesn't. You'd hope they'd learn an awful lot from it, but you do always have that fear. Like even when you look at the first goal that they actually did score for Shelbourne, the header, like it was straight across, back across the goalkeeper. That was one I think Maeve could have done slightly better in, and when Mackenzie Anthony scored. But like even like it was 4 goals and
it was 0-0 on the hour. It was 0-0 on the hour.
64 to 74. There was 4 goals and a missed penalty. Yeah. It's a lot in 10 minutes.
Yeah. You mentioned Mackenzie Anthony there. She came on round about the hour mark. She came on, the score was 0-0 with half an hour to play. She scored won a penalty. Herself and Leah Doyle seemed to be involved in almost everything. Now, Leah's been around a while, but it's nice to see her kind of popping up with assists, with a goal direct from the corner as well. Really played a part, impressed me big time in that last half hour on the pitch on Saturday afternoon.
If there was an award for most improved player in the league over the last 18 months to 24 months, Leah Doyle would win that hands down. The improvements that she has made and sort of done and worked for herself, to me, goes no end. Because you have to remember, one of the early days in Noel King, she probably wouldn't have started very many games. She come off the bench a few times. She wouldn't have been a bit-time player. Whereas now she's sort of the sort of player that you're thinking, is she going to be probably not the first, but one of the top 3-4 names on that Shelbourne team sheet right now? And that's a credit to herself. And like the goal she scored, she doesn't pop up on many goals, but to score directly from a corner, you don't see that very often in this league. And it's one of them moments that I think she'll take away. She'll be delighted with. But I think for Shels, it was an easy enough day in the end. Maybe at times they made that look harder than it was.
But I think it's only Waterford's second game. I think as they get more experience and more kind of used to playing at the standard, I think we'll see that 60-minute spell being able to hold on to 0-0s effectively. We can see them get a bit more tighter at the back for the full 90 minutes. And I don't think they'll leave too many points behind them this year.
You won't like me saying this because it's jumping ship slightly in the sense of towards the end of the show instead. But the game this weekend against Sligo Rovers,
it's massive.
It's a great game to see where both teams are at, and it's sort of two teams at a similar level that it's probably a prime opportunity for them to get something out of a game.
Well, now that you mentioned Sligo Rovers, let's talk about them. They're the final member of the hat-trick of penalty misses, unfortunately, for them. But they were well beaten at this stage. It's kind of different to the other two in that it was 4-0 injury time. Cork will be delighted with this. We did touch on it at the top of the show, but very impressive from Cork throughout the whole game, really. They never really looked like conceding, even down to the fact that some of the highlights in the highlight package that the FAI put out was Sligo kicking a corner immediately onto the top of the post. Like, if that's the best that the highlights editor can come up with, which may or may not be reflective of the game, but that's what's in the highlights, it doesn't say a whole pile for Sligo's chances in the game.
Do you know what? I agree with you, but I'm going to single out somebody, and I don't often single out many players when it comes to the likes of Cork, because I think it was a great collective effort, but I'm really delighted for Christina Dring.
Yeah.
She didn't play very much last year. I looked at the last couple of seasons. She scored 1 and 2 goals in each campaign, and she's already scored 2 goals this season. And I think she is somebody who will relish playing under Frank I think he'll get the best out of her. I think you'll get an awful lot out of the likes of Eva Mangan as well. I think from a Sligo Rovers viewpoint, I think the biggest thing that they'll do off the back of this game is they'll go back away and they'll look at some of the defending, because the defending for them, some of the goals you conceded was quite poor defensively, and not being disrespectful to Cork City, but if you're doing that against the likes of a Cork City who many people would have said was going to be a close game, what's going to happen when they play against the top teams if the top teams click? And I think Steve Feeney's going to have to reassess that and just see how they get rid of their mistakes, because it was a really bad day at the office for them.
That being said, though, like, they were very unlucky with the third goal in particular. The first goal, Eva Mangan, who we all know about Eva Mangan's ability to win a game, particularly against that opposition from the lower half of the league. But her pass to Dring's finish, top notch. It was her own goal, the second one, and I think that was what I was most impressed with. Was she picked the pocket of, I think it was one of the Sligo defenders, I think it might have been Alana Doherty. She picks her pocket and just makes a burst through and cuts through a player or two before rounding the keeper and slotting it home. It's as good a goal as you'll see self-made in the league in the last couple of seasons. But from a player that's obviously brimming full of confidence, that has been missing in the last few seasons. The third one, I felt, I can't remember who was involved, but it was a very kind of strange kind of ball into the box. Bonnie McKiernan punches it, half clears it, can't get quite enough on it. It falls to a Cork player, knocks it back in, and Avian Donnelly just kind of gets a body part to it, kind of gets an eye to it, and just kind of in slow motion almost over 2 or 3 Sligo players on the line. Very little that Bonnie McKiernan or the Sligo defence could have done about that once the punch was kind of half punched, if that makes sense. The third one, just a poor set piece. Should have done better. Don't. It's 4-0.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think when you're looking back at it, it's one of it is it's a bad one. I think it's number 18 for Sligo gets dispossessed for the goal, but for Dring. But I think even with that goal, Dring has a lot to do at that stage, because at one stage a Sligo player sort of hits off and she nearly goes to stumble and does well to sort of stay up. But that is just a player that's confidence, and like from Cork, I think you can see by the way they celebrate, not necessarily celebrate the result, celebrate the fact that when Una Foyle saved the penalty later on, to how much it actually means to them to keep a clean sheet. I think I was listening there to something there earlier, and it was like 2 or 3 clean sheets they kept all of last year. It wasn't very many, and they haven't kept very many in the last couple of years. And like when you look at Cork City, Cork have tended to, I would just say, struggle in games and really let teams back into games. I think it's probably one of the better Cork City performances. Yes, Sligo contributed a little bit to it, but I think from a Cork viewpoint, you couldn't have asked for very much more for your first home game in the season. And
it was consistent from start to finish. Cork were the dominant side in that game. So from their point of view, they'll be really happy with how things have gone down there. From Sligo Rovers' point of view, they'll be just disappointed. But, you know, on the other side of it, they get to go back and regroup and learn from that, and hopefully they'll push on for next week's game. Let's take a look at some of the 2 undefeated teams in the league so far. Well, actually, not just undefeated, the 100% records, both on the West Coast. Galway United had a trip to Dalymount. Hannah Healy upset the apple cart, hadn't read the script from a Galway point of view, and has the ball with probably, like, I don't want to criticize it because she got the goal, but it wasn't very well struck. It seemed to almost dribble into the bottom corner. It won't be one she'll be putting on the highlight reel, but nonetheless, inside the first minute of the game at home, you're expected maybe not to compete with them. Great start for both, but didn't quite go well after that.
You know what it reminds me of? Just reminds me, it's just that bubble. Yeah. That little bubble in Dalymount sort of helping the ball over the line and that. But like, you go 1-0 up in that sort of game off the back of a bad result in Sligo the week before, where no disrespect, they probably should have beaten Sligo with the team that they have. But the resilience from Sligo, and then you go 1-0 up. How would you describe her? The nightmare of Bows is what I'm going to call her from Saturday in Aisling Meany.
Yeah, she was phenomenal.
Phenomenal. The cross for Kayla Bergen for the header, and Bergen does very well. She gets quite a bit of power to it, even though it's only 6-7 yards out.
We spoke about this briefly before we went live, but Like, that's as good a goal as you'll find in the country. Never mind the Women's League of Ireland. That is as good a goal. Meany, just inside halfway, puts it down the line, beats the defender, whips in that unbelievably good cross, and Ceola Bergen just meets it with such power at the back post. Like, absolutely no chance for Rachel Kelly.
I'm gonna say something now to you. You say that, right? But it wasn't even the best goal in the game.
I know, yeah.
That's the funny thing about it. It wasn't even the best goal in the game. And
but there's a similarity with the best goal of the game, which of course is Kate Thompson's screamer of a volley a few moments later in the game. Was Meany. Meany again breaks down that line, whips in a lethal cross, and all Kate Thompson has to do is make contact with it. But what contact she makes. Again, Rachel Kelly, absolutely no hope of keeping that out of the back of the net. What a finish.
But you've got Trace Knievy in the build-up as well. And like I'm saying to you off air, I was like, I feel so sorry for her, even though I tweeted about Kate Thompson on Saturday, because I was half watching it because I was at the LR and Treaty. And there's only when I watched it back, I'm like, Kate Thompson, you did not do that. It was an absolute sublime goal. And the funny thing about it is she's the sort of player that a lot of people wouldn't expect that from. A lot of people wouldn't expect to hear the likes of Kate Thompson's name when you've got Niamh Farrelly in midfield. Thompson is somebody, and if people actually go back and watch the Ireland under-19s campaign last summer, Thompson, for me, with the likes of Jess Fitzgerald around her, was somebody who really stood out for Ireland, and is somebody who we've been mentioning so many times on the show, even last year, that I've always been banging the drum about it because a fantastic footballer. Like Trace Knievy. Knievy probably never gets the credit she deserves. And like, what a finish. And then to add a third, you know, really just added that little bit of a gloss on. Probably the worst goal of the three from Belichick.
Like, no disrespect to Belichick, she's in the right place at the right time, but Bowes get 8 opportunities to clear that ball, don't, and it just lands at Belichick's feet, and she absolutely she's taking no prisoners. I'm surprised the net didn't break. She hit it so hard, but she hit it hard from 2.5 yards. Like, to me, she was never missing, but poor from Bowes. They're really not going to be happy with that. The first two, 100% forgivable, but you got to be clearing that and not just conceding from those kind of positions.
So I said something on our preview show. I said
Rovers would finish 7th.
Well, I said that, but about Galway, I said the one thing for Galway, if Galway are to do well this year, it's like Emma Doherty and Ceola Bergen have to hit the ground running. Doherty got goals in the first game. Bergen's on the score sheet this game. I think for Galway, Phil Trill must find out either how to fire a rocket or something, because it seems like a goal going in the other end of the pitch seems to waken his team up this season.
Yeah,
I don't think he'd be very pleased with the fact that that's twice they've gone behind in games and had to pull it back. But like the fact they went behind in the second minute, and then pulled it back in the 6th minute, can't have asked for a better response. And I think that's fair enough. But the one positive that struck me coming out of the games at the weekend, particularly from a Galway point of view, was how strong their bench was on Saturday. Because you look at the 5 subs they brought on. Rola Olasola came on just after the hour mark. Niamh Farrelly, what a player to be bringing on for the last 20 minutes of a game when you're 2-1 up away from home. Shauna Fox comes on for the last 10 minutes. Rachel Kearns, who hasn't really got the opportunity yet, but if she will score goals as well. Jodie Griffin came on for the last few minutes too. So it's actually ridiculous.
It's scary how good their bench is.
But then think about this, right? They have a player like Abby Callanan on the bench. It doesn't even come on.
Jane Murren, first choice goalkeeper last year, not getting a game this year. Like the quality, and I think that's why Galway are going to be challenging for the title right through to the very end, because the quality they have, not just from 1 to 11, but from 1 to 17 or 18, is top notch. Again, with a whole pile of girls coming through under 17 and under 19, just itching for a chance to break into that match day squad as well.
I also don't think Phil Trill ever gets the credit for his recruitment, because of it. No disrespect, but if one of the top Dublin teams had that squad, they would be raved about and said, what great recruitment, what great signings. I don't think what people don't realize as well is, for someone to get some of these players to commit to going to Galway.
Yeah.
Like for someone like Neil Farrelly to be committing to going to Galway, to me, it's madness.
But
Neil Farrelly, Shamrock, and it's they're buying into what his vision is. That's the great thing about it, and that's what I love about it is the fact that they're willing to buy into. Phil they've met Phil, they've had a conversation with Phil, and they said, "Okay, I'm going to buy into what you say," and I think it's brilliant in that sense.
100%. You're looking at Nicole Nix coming from Wexford, I think. Keola Bergen from Wexford.
Bergen, I think they're.
But Bergen's not. She's Tullamore, I think. She's that neck of the woods, Laois, Tullamore somewhere. But you've got these. Maybe she's somewhere in South Leinster, but they're coming from Wexford FC last season. You're looking at Rachel Kearns coming back from the AIL. She could have gone and played with Mayo in Gaelic football, but she's choosing to play soccer. So like there's these kind of big choices that people are buying into, and I think we had Phil on. Was it start last year talking about where their investment had gone, and he wasn't giving it to the players, he was giving it to the structure. So yeah, the player themselves mightn't be getting any financial reward above and beyond maybe some minor expenses compared to some of the other clubs, but they're getting the supports. They've got all of the things that you need to be the top athlete you possibly can be provided to you, whether that's nutrition, S&C, medical support, all of the support that you want at this level, and putting resources into that. And you only have to look at the media guide that came out at the start of the year. I think it's something like 16 or 17 player or staff on the list. And I spoke to Phil, and he kind of laughed and said, "Oh yeah, that's just the ones we put in. I think they've got a few more as well who aren't even on the list." So when you're giving that kind of support to these girls want to buy into that program. They see the success in terms of 2 Avenir Sports Cup wins in the last 2 seasons, and they know this team has the potential to challenge. And you have to remember, this is a club that's lost Julianne Russell, Jenna Slattery, Gemma McGuinness the year before. They've lost these girls who are good quality players, and they're still at the top of the game here in this country. I think it's phenomenal what Phil has done over there in
scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's scary.
Go on.
I was just even looking. Jodie Griffin comes off the bench for the senior team on Saturday, then goes and plays for the under-19s on Sunday, scores a couple of goals. Like it's a lot of young players, and it's a lot of players. Like when you look at that Galway team, a lot of players who've come through Galway, a lot of players who've sort of come through the system, who've seen the pathway there from Galway when it was Galway WFC, and are sort of coming to fruition from that. Like you look at your Kate Thompsons, your Trace Greaves. Yes, Ashland Meany's had a spell away. Avian Costello.
Ashley Meany's probably the oldest player in that squad, and she's what, 26, 27? Like it's if even, so it's crazy. Shauna Fox might be similar age, but she's what, 25, 26, I think maybe.
Rachel Fox is 28.
Yeah, Rachel Kearns the same, mid to late 20s. Like these girls are not by any stretch of the imagination over the hill in terms of like they're 10 years younger than Anya O'Gorman in midfield and Ruisha Littlejohn in midfield for Shamrock Rovers. These girls have a career ahead of them. If the Galway can hold on to them, it's going to be exciting times for the tribeswomen. We'll move down the west coast. We'll go to Treaty United. We know their struggles over the last couple of seasons. We've read about their struggles maybe off the pitch in the last couple of weeks and months. Not a lot of, well, maybe that's not fair. A little bit of disquiet from a certain bunch of supporters have made life a little bit difficult for the people trying to run the show down there in Treaty. We don't know enough to maybe get involved in that argument, but I'm seeing the results on the pitch of the investment that's come in and the expertise that's come in. And I think I did read a piece from the CEO, Ciara McCormack, who we've had on the show once or twice, about her thoughts on where the discussion is going. She didn't go to the men's game last weekend because she knew there was a protest about her. It got a little bit heated from certain parts of the Treaty United. I'll use supporters in quotation marks here for the club. Never nice to see this happen. We see it all too often in Irish football, but you got to look at what's happening. And her argument was that there was people unhappy with maybe the women's team being treated as equals within the club in terms of resources, in terms of respect, in terms of promotion. We're seeing that now. They're competitive in games. Okay, granted, they're playing against teams that they would be expected to be competitive against. But 3 years ago, DLR would have gone down there and put 5 or 6 past Treaty. Now Treaty were very unlucky not to put 3 or 4 past them in Belfield at the weekend. How good is Isabella Flacchini? She's just everything she touches turns to gold at the moment. You spoke to her after the game at the weekend.
So I'm going to say this. LOITV doesn't do her credit. Because even you see the movement off the ball. The movement off the ball is actually quality. And you look at that game, and we'll talk about DLR's best chance when the game is 0-0 before the goal. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when you look at the first goal, she has no right to put that ball in the net. No right at all. From that angle, the way she's took it, she's not left foot, by the way. Because she said something, she was like, I scored on my left. She was talking about the players, I scored on my left foot. And I don't think she left foot as far as now, but by the sound thing, I don't think she. And like when you look at everything she done, everything good the Treaty done went through her.
Yeah, 100%.
Went through her, went around her.
But that being said, there was what we've missed in Treaty in previous seasons was maybe one or two players who had a bit of get up and go to them. The Jenna Slattery's and Amy Madden's impressed at various stages, for me anyway, with Treaty, even Aisling Meany when she was there. But they were always seemed to be on their own. They didn't have that backup, and Treaty seemed to have that little bit of backup now. So Flacini at one stage, I think it might have been for the first goal, she wins the ball and then she lays it off and they pass it on and the pass comes back and it comes back to her. The problem was Treaty didn't have that link up between the player picking the ball up in the middle of the field and then being in the closing stages of a move to finish the ball to the back of the net. They seem to have that now. The ball through, okay, it was a little bit of a hit and hope, but it was hit a hope in the right direction and executed perfectly from that left back. Name escapes me right now. She's the Japanese national. She's Ayaka Ikeza. I apologize if I butchered that, but she saw the run, puts the ball in space, and Flacini just gets that left foot out and just tucks it past Badan. It really didn't give her much of a chance. Although, would you be disappointed?
She actually played the ball. She actually played the ball for both goals.
Probably. Well, yeah, into Flacini. Flacini for the second one. What impressed me the most there was the composure. She rounds the keeper and makes a great run, rounds the keeper, runs out a road, puts her foot in the ball and turns, and she has an option on the 6-yard line. She's an option approaching the penalty spot, but she spots the player coming from deep. I think it might have been. Yeah, Gillian O'Toole. She spots her coming from deep. She plays the ball right to where she's going to be. None of this playing at her or to her, where she's going to be, and she just meets it at the edge of the box and just picks her spot and gives keeper absolutely no chance. It's a really, really composed performance from Treaty at the weekend.
I thought for that goal, I thought, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? I was like, you're at that screwing this, because when she gets around, but then I'm thinking, okay, finishing into the bottom corner, and then she takes that back, and then it's nearly as if I decided I have a wand. I'm just gonna pause, and I'm just gonna do this little scan. What's around me? Boom.
It wasn't even a little scan. She just turned her whole body and said, "Now, who's looking for the ball? Who can I help? Who can my team advance with?"
And then like she pops the wand again, and it's like, there you go, pop it go. The one thing I will say is, it wasn't the best game of football, and the main reason for that, if anybody's watched the game back on LOI TV, I didn't realize this pre-kickoff how bad the pitch was until I actually walked on it and said, full time. To me, and I'm not going to blame UCD Waves here, because UCD Waves are the third, maybe fourth tenant in the UCD Bowl, but that pitch should not be allowed to host League of Ireland games. Never mind women's games. Should never be allowed to host UCD AFC. Should not be allowed playing that pitch either. That pitch is actually deplorable. And
you missed the old days of Belfield Park. During my time at UCD, we got to play on Belfield Park every second week, and it was like a carpet. And now when you're competing with the rugby, and particularly rugby have played, I think, 8 games this season on it, and maybe 9 or 10, and they've only 1 or 2 left. So in 3 weeks, when the last block of games is played, it will get better, but it's going to be torture for DLR for the next couple of weeks, and they're getting games at the moment, which does not help either.
The thing is, I'm switching code slightly, going to UCD soccer. UCD soccer always try to play a nice brand of football. that pitch does not conduce to a nice brand of football. And you could see a lot of things that Treaty tried to do on Saturday couldn't do because of the pitch. Like even you look at like Treaty's DLR's best chance in the game is when the Treaty goalkeeper rolls the ball, literally gives the ball straight away to Abby Brophy, and Brophy hits it over the bar. That's really their best chance. I think Treaty DLR struggled massively to great chances. I think if that pitch had been, say, Tallaght style pitch, even a Markets Field, really could have won that game by about 5 goals.
I love the way you just throw. Like, if it could have been a pitch that there's like 100 grand gone into in the last 12 months.
The one thing I will say,
thing in the world.
The one thing I will say, no, I said that on purpose. I said that on purpose because they're actually going to Tallaght on Saturday, and I'm very curious to see how they got on Saturday. But for me, the biggest thing is I'm really starting to see, and I know we talked a little bit about Katie Lawley last week, and you asked me for a player to watch this year in Treaty. I said Katie Lawley. To me, the one thing I will say is it's great to see Cara Griffin really coming of age.
Yeah, she did have a chance at the weekend, and I'm going to give Badana the credit for pushing it onto the crossbar. If it hit the crossbar, it was a great save in the top corner, but it was a lovely effort from Cara Griffin. Really could have got on the score sheet with that. A couple of other things before we finish up on this game, because we have one more game to get to, Wexford and Peamount, but there's a red card at the tail end of this. Like 100% a red card. You have absolutely no excuse for it. Frustration just boiling over, and Chloe McCarthy just kind of kicks out. Maybe there was something said or a little pushing the back or something in the build up to it, but you can't really justify what Chloe did, can you?
Stupid. It's stupid. She'll regret it. She'll be fuming with herself. The problem is she probably will get she'll probably get 3-game ban. She could easily get 3-game ban could easily get a 4-game ban depending on what sort of. But it's silly, it's reckless. There was no need for it. And to me, I think she just needs to sort of look back at it and just realize I made a big mistake. I let my teammates down on that side. But the thing is, and the one thing I will say is she's got a manager around her who will have a conversation with her, but will not throw her to the wolves.
But you don't need the thing. You don't need a conversation
around that. I'm not talking about in a bad way. I'm talking about
No, but the player
will put an arm around her and be like, you know, you made a mistake.
The player will do that. The player themselves know immediately. Like, you don't need us bringing it up on national broadcast to talk about it like it's. But at the same time, it happened in the game, so we're gonna. But the player themselves knows. Like, do you know what I mean? She's young. She was frustrated, and I can see that it probably won't happen again with her. One final person to talk about in this game, from my point of view, was the goalkeeper. Lisa Toomey, Finnish international, youth international. She's come in. She's the only keeper in the league with a clean slate so far. Hasn't conceded in opening 2 rounds of games. Got very lucky with that kick out. That has to be said. But the fact is, she's the only one who hasn't conceded in a team that we wouldn't be unsurprised to see conceding goals. Has she impressed you?
Yeah, but I'm gonna throw a little bit of a spanner on before I give you my answer to that. Right? Technically, as a club, Treaty United are currently on a 4-game winning streak with 4 clean sheets. If you look back to the last 2 games of last season, who did they beat in the last 2 games of last season?
I'm gonna have to go look.
Without looking.
No, I don't know is the short answer. I don't know.
Peamount and Galway beat them both 1-0 the last 2 games of last season, and they've started this season with 2 clean sheets. Yes is my answer. I was impressed with her. Yes, she made a stupid mistake for the throwing the ball to Abby Brophy, but got away with it. I walked away thinking, decent keeper. Behind that back 4, yeah, I'd be happy enough with her. I was quite impressed with Sean Russell. I think the way he speaks as well. I think it's quite impressive. Father Martin was actually at the game as well.
Well, Martin actually, former manager of both UCD and Treaty, so he'd be well used to the venue from his UCD days, but also to Treaty. Well, he would have been Limerick FC to be fair, but senior football in Limerick, he's managed in both places.
Yeah, he was there. Because I've seen Sean Thompson after the game. But for me, I'm curious to see Treaty in the next 3 to 4 games. Realistically, like, take away Shamrock Rovers this weekend, Cork City and Sligo the 2 after that, I would expect 6 points from. Likewise, if they can get 3 points against Shamrock Rovers, we could be here in a couple of weeks having a conversation about Treaty potentially being 5 wins from 5. Likewise, I think
like right now, if I gave you 100-1 odds of Treaty winning the league, how much money are you putting on it?
I'm not putting on to win the league, but if you were to give me odds of Treaty to be 5 wins out of 5 after the first 5 games, I'd definitely put something on that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I just don't think they can compete over the course of. I don't think they have the squad to compete over the course of the full season, but they are going to take points off teams week in, week out, and they're going to have a big say in where the league championship resides. Maybe not necessarily.
Do you know what? This is the sort of year where an All-Ireland Cup, a nice run in the FAI Cup, teams sort of meet each other. Say you get a Shelbourne, Peamount first round, or the quarterfinal, Wexford Athlone. You know, you can sort of get them. You know, when you get them years where the big teams all tend to meet each other, and then the lesser teams tend to get the other side of the semi-final. It's the sort of year where you'd sort of say, Treaty could go on a nice cup run, and they've definitely got a lot of good players there, and I think they're going to get a lot better as the weeks go on.
Well, let's very quickly, if I can, get the actual score or the draw from today. We'll move on to that quickly. We will come back to Peas and Shelbourne, but just that you mentioned it now, if you give me a second, I will get it up here on the screen for those that are watching on YouTube. You'll see there is the Group A in today's draw. So Bohs, Linfield, Shelbourne, and Sligo Rovers. Decent draw, but like there's 3 teams there realistically that you'd be looking at to come out of that group. Bohs, Shells, Linfield. You'd expect Shells and Linfield possibly to top that group. But as I said, Bohs could upset the apple cart there as well. Like, it'd be very difficult to see Sligo Rovers coming out of that group just with the quality of the teams that are in there with them. In Group B, DLR Waves, Lisburn, Shamrock Rovers, and Wexford. Lisburn struggled last year in this competition, as did DLR. So I'd be surprised if it's not Shamrock Rovers and Wexford coming out of that group as well. This was seeded, of course, so it's kind of been set up to be kind of one of the top 2 seeds, or the Northern Ireland team coming out of these groups. Group C, Cliftonville, Cork City, Galway, and Peamount. Now, that's a decent, given Cork's form this year, that's a decent group. And you can't really predict. You'd expect Galway to come out. They've won this twice on the bounce. They like this competition. But Peamount, Cliftonville, Cork, it's Cliftonville or Peamount you'd probably have to plump for, but you really couldn't write off Cork City's chances after watching them in the last couple of weeks.
No, especially when we see who the home games that Cork City get. I think that's vital in this competition, is who they get at home.
The final groups, then the league champions Athlone with Glentoran, Treaty United, and Waterford. Again, Waterford, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, given the new girls will say they might not compete over the competition, but they could take points off teams. Treaty United, will be interesting to see how they get on against Athlone and Glentoran, but it's going to be an interesting couple of months as this develops over the next maybe 4 to 5
I will
months.
say something. I'm going to give the FAI a bit of credit on this competition. The one thing I harped on about last year was I felt the competition started too early. The Northern Irish teams were pretty much neglected in the first round or so. A lot of them are still in pre-season. Their season hadn't started at that stage. April the 27th, that weekend, is the first round of games. So the Northern Irish teams will be in season. I think, to me, that's important. If you want this competition to work, you have to give the Northern Irish teams a fair opportunity to have a crack at the competition. Because last year's, because we look at the first round of results last year, when I think it was Clifton? No, it wasn't Clifton. Was it Cliftonville went to Wexford and lost 6-0?
Was it Crusaders or Cliftonville? I can't remember. Yeah, there was a game that happened. All right.
You know, and that, to me, I think, and I said last year, I think a month later will be better, and I think it's better that they're happening late April for the first round. Like, there's no real rush in the sense of trying to get this competition finished as quick as possible. There's no rush in it. You know, there's plenty of time. Like, we're looking still. Even if you look at the final,
okay, cool.
The final is 31st. Is the weekend of the 31st of August, which is later as well this year.
Yeah. I suppose the only concern I'd have with the whole competition quality this year is that North have gone from 10 teams to 8 teams in 2 seasons. We lost Science Swifts last year. We're losing Mid-Ulster this year. Mid-Ulster had got 1 point in the league last year, so you can kind of see their reason for dropping back down to regional football. But the league is not doing well up north at the moment. There's 4 teams that don't even bother competing, and well, maybe they're not invited. They are a little bit off the pace in terms of the results they've had over the last couple of seasons. But this competition continues to grow, and I can see it as a really good role model for what is possible across the whole island. I'd love to see a combined league. We'll get it with the women's years before we'll get it with the men.
Interesting in terms of Linfield's signed young Caoimhe McGee from Shelburne, a young talented young goalkeeper there today.
Yeah, let's talk about the final game of the thing, because I realize we're 55 minutes and I'm on the under for the hour. So don't spend hours on this now. Wexford.
Spend hours?
Wexford and Peamount. To me, I'm disappointed with the quality in this game. I watched the highlights. I watched bits of the game live on Saturday. It took a Becky Casson free kick deflected in over her own keeper by Jess Fitzgerald. Very unlucky for that to happen to her. But Peamount didn't really look like they were going to score. They just looked like they were a little bit off the pace. And to be honest, I wasn't overly impressed by what I saw from Wexford, apart from maybe Ella Malloy and Patches, who looked decent. I thought Wexford just kind of struggled a little bit.
Yeah, it was one of them sort of games where, like, there wasn't a lot in it. There wasn't a lot of really good things. I think for me, when I look at it, I think that chance from Ellen Dolan early on in the first 10 minutes has to hit the target. Like Jess, when you talk about Jess Fitzgerald's nick from Becky Casson, Jess is just trying to sort of get up there, try and get something on it to try and deflect it. But it was just one of them games that it was always going to be a case of, if somebody scored first, that they would probably win that game. And you look at the Peamount result the week before against Cork, wasn't a great performance either. Scored twice early, then couldn't really kick on. Granted, they'd Karen Duggan back for this game, but it's one of them that is it a bit of a, not necessarily a hangover, but a bit of a post James O'Callaghan era. Going to take a bit of time for Peamount to really find their feet. A lot of new faces there. It's strange times at Peamount at the minute for me.
Yeah, absolutely. But the time will tell. It's very early. You can't really tell until you're 7 or 8 or 9 games in. Maybe even full round of games is played. That does bring us to the league table at the end of round 2, and you can see Galway and Treaty.
Look at you.
I'm flying through this now.
Through this.
4 points we have Athlone and Shamrock Rovers after their draw in Tala on Saturday. Shells, Cork, Peamount and Wexford on 3. Bows and Sligo Rovers after their draw on the opening day of the season, 1 point apiece, while DLR Waves and Waterford will have to make do with 0 points to their tally at the moment. If we look at this weekend's fixtures in the league, we have Bohemians hosting Wexford at 3 p.m. in Dalymount Park. DLR Waves and Shells will do battle in the UCD Bowl. That game has been moved from Talcott Park because of work that's been done in UCD at the time of the second meeting of the season. So it's been preemptive, which at least is positive in terms of creating a problem later on in the season. Peamount and Galway United, that clash, always exciting. Usually league title deciding, but they're playing it in the round 3 this year. Peamount versus Galway in PRL Park at 5 o'clock. Shamrock Rovers host Treaty. Will be interesting to see how those two sides do. Of course, a win for Shamrock Rovers will see them leapfrog Treaty. Athlone versus Cork, another one where we see a team that have possibility of doing something this season up against one of the more established sides in the league, while Sligo Rovers host Waterford in what is effectively almost a must-win for both in terms of getting their seasons up and running. Where are you going to be yourself, Aaron? You going to get to any of the games, or will you be watching?
No, I won't get anything this weekend. It's my late weekend at work, so it looks as though I'll be stuck to the second screen. But if I was to get to a game, like the one game you'd love to be at this weekend, you'd love to be either at Shamrock Rovers against Treaty, or you'd love to be at Peamount Galway. They're the 2 games that really stand out. Bows Wexford, the manager's come back, the previous coach and ticket coming back to Dalymount. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. The one thing I will say from a Bows viewpoint, I've seen enough out of Bows in the last weekend to sort of say when they do get that form going, I think they'll be okay. The only concern from a Bows viewpoint is where's the goals going to come from. But if it was to look here, you're probably thinking you could have three away wins and potentially 2 home wins this weekend.
Absolutely. Now, I have to say, I just wanted to check on Twitter there, or X. Sligo Rovers versus Waterford is free in for everybody this weekend. It's a really good chance to get a really big crowd into the showgrounds and showcase what does actually promise to be a very even game between these two sides. It could be
It's also live on TG Car as well.
Yeah, so really good chance if you're living in the Northwest, like myself, do get along and try and get out and support.
Will you get to it?
I don't know yet. Probably depend on the schedule. It could be pretty tight, as we are for the end of the show. We're going to sign off because I am determined to be off for the hour. Aaron, thanks again. We'll be back with you next week.